All my life, I've tried to use music to bring people together, yet it saddens me to see how misinformation is now being used to divide the world. I've decided to no longer use Twitter, given their recent change in policy, which will allow misinformation to flourish unchecked. That's from Elton John. I've been a fan of Elton John for years. I really like his music, and that's all I have to say about that. It's interesting because, when we talk about this Twitter stuff for Elon, I come at you guys from a perspective of I'm curious and actually interested. Will the business flourish? Will it succeed? Right? Can they attract advertisers to come advertise on the platform? That's what it takes. Or can they get people to pay them a bunch of money through subscriptions? The other thing too, which is interesting as well, is can the website stay stable, right? And in order to do these things, you need staff, you need people. And one of the things that I want to chat with you guys today is if you're interested in business, interested in management, I think there's a really important lessons to be learned with sort of what's going on, and we see it live. So that's why we talk about this stuff. It's interesting talking about Elton John. He's leaving the platform, and I had actually not really even considered, these things, or making big statements of that I'm leaving Twitter, that kind of stuff. I don't think I'm going to do that kind of thing. But if I were to leave the platform and just delete my account on, say, Twitter, I actually do consider it, and I'll tell you guys why, and then we'll go back into the business and management stuff. But first, it's kind of strange. Elon, this is just 7 hours ago. He's tweeting out, "My pronouns are prosecute Fauci," and this is coming on the heels of he's essentially attacking his former trust and safety person at Twitter, which is Yoel Roth. Now he's attacking, like overtly attacking Fauci, which is the essentially the person who was in charge of our COVID policy. This is during the Trump administration, actually. And the reason why I mentioned Trump is because Elon's also tweeting out that, this basically, it's a picture putting Fauci's face on Worm Tongue, which would be Lord of the Rings reference. And I can't remember the king in this story, but basically, and then you can see here, it says, "Just one more lockdown, my king." But basically just sort of mocking and ridiculing COVID policies, essentially, right? Essentially what you're doing, and putting the sort of dog whistle or sick 'em kind of sign on Fauci. And it is deeply disturbing, actually. And I understand, to people who are right leaning, you think this stuff is funny. Haha, it's really funny. But I want you to understand, like, this is really serious, and it's a big problem, because we actually had this situation when Trump was first elected, and then he's on Twitter and calling out certain kind of people. When you're on a platform like this, I hope you understand that there are crazy people in this world. That is a real thing. There's also someone mentioned in the comments, and I can fully agree with, if you guys remember, there was a whole sort of Pizzagate thing. You can look it up if you like, but the basic gist of it is, like, if you tell people over and over again that there's bad things happening at this pizza place, and you just tell people that over and over again, ultimately someone's going to act on that and go attack the pizza place, right? And this is not just a Twitter alone issue, right? So I don't want to just focus so much on Twitter. I want to talk about, like, managing people. So the first thing to address here, and I want to pose this to you guys, for those of you, like I said, are interested in management, business, or leadership. Let's say you have one of your employees, right? And let's say you're a guy, okay? And one of your female employees comes up and says that she feels very uncomfortable because other workers may be saying things that, that she would deem as being sexual harassment, maybe commenting on her looks, maybe commenting on the clothes that she wears, and any number of things, okay? And I'm asking you, since you're the boss, what is your response to that? What is your response to when one of your female employees expresses concerns about possibly being sexually harassed? I want to give you another scenario. You have an executive team, right? Maybe you're the CEO, that kind of thing, and you have, like, 10 people in the room, and you want to create an environment where you have a successful business and these kind of things where people feel comfortable. And you may have female employees that express things that just you've never heard before. As a guy, it's not something that you ever think about. Okay, any number of things. I'll give you a simple example. Let's say the law has changed regarding abortion in the USA, and you have female employees that are concerned about, say, privacy issues. Like, for example, let's say they want to do said operation, right? And they want to take time off work. What is a company policy on privacy of that kind of thing? I'm just giving you one example. As a CEO, how do you deal with these kind of things? And I'm giving you just a couple scenarios relating to, say, male and female relationships in the office. And one of the things that I have come to learn the older that I get, you guys may or may not know I'm pushing 50. I did an independent studio. I also worked in Hollywood and also was a professor for many years and have dealt with so many kinds of people. I mean, literally, I would meet maybe as many as 300 new people every semester, say when I was a professor, and I would, adds up very quickly. It's like you meet anywhere from 600 to 1,000 people a year, which is really a lot. You have exposure to a lot of people all of the time. And one of the things that I've learned is that you can be often surprised with the thoughts that people have. You just things that you haven't even thought of, right? You can be really surprised with that, and the needs of various people as well. Some people, their management style is they don't care about their employees. They just say, "Well, I hired you to do X job. I don't care about your feelings. Get X job done." Right? That is some employees think that way, or some I should say bosses think in that regard. And I want to ask you the question, like, for example, has there ever been something that's important to you? Let's say, for example, you have a religious concern. Let's say that you don't want to work on Sundays. I think that's a good example, right? You believe that, Sundays is the day of rest. It's not the time to work. And your boss is always calling you and berating you because, why don't you come to work on Sunday? Because, we pay you. You're supposed to do a job. I need you to work on Sunday. Come work, right? Or, for example, you believe that you want to wear a certain kind of clothing that is important for you. Maybe you want to wear a symbol of your religion on your shirt. Any number of things, and your boss is like, that symbol isn't appropriate. I don't want you to wear it. Any number of things, right? So the point I'm trying to get across to you guys is there are lots of different people in the world, and they may have different concerns that are different than yours. And as a boss, as a leader, ask yourself, do you care about your employee concerns? Now, I am well aware, guys, I am well aware. There are bosses out there that do not care about their employees' concerns whatsoever because their point of view is I pay you to do X job, do X job. I don't want to hear any of the other stuff. I myself disagree with that kind of management style. I have lived long enough to know that people have all kinds of concerns and stuff that I haven't even thought about. And there's another thing as well, is oftentimes is some people feel like that is uncomfortable to say said concerns in front of like a room full of 100 people, that they'd rather just privately address these kind of things. And then the boss is the one who sort of sets the tone for the organization, sets a tone for group meetings, and sets the tone of what is considered acceptable behavior. Now, I know I go through this whole thing and discussion about this, and we can go through lots of different case studies and stuff like that, but literally we're watching this live as we see with the Twitter situation. And there's a couple big problems with the stuff that Elon has tweeted. And like I said, I'm not going to make an official announcement. Oh my God, I'm leaving Twitter or deleting everything. But if I were a public person, a public celebrity, or if I were a company, this would be the time to leave Twitter for sure. And why? Well, one is whenever you make fun of the whole pronoun situation, right? You're essentially making fun of LGBTQ, mean lesbian, gay, transgender, these kind of things. You're making fun of these kind of people. I give you a very clear example. So when I directed a movie, I had an art director, and everyone thought it was a man. Everyone thought my art director was a man, when in fact it was a woman who essentially transgender, who just behaves more like a guy. And there's no other way to say it. And it was for some people it was really funny because they were like always completely shocked of like, oh wait, that's a woman, right? But you would never guess. And so that particular person, they identify with being a man. Everyone assumed they were a man and this kind of thing. And that's sort of why for some people they prefer to be called him, just for example. And this has been a what's the right word to say? It's been a dividing issue among conservative groups that just say, I don't care about your pronouns. I don't care about who you want to be. I'm gonna, basically call you what I think you are, not necessarily what you yourself want to identify as with. And so, people who make fun of the whole pronoun situation basically dismiss this certain group of people be it lesbian, gay, or transgender. I always purposely talk out about this particular issue because I've seen it with my students, and I've seen it with, as I mentioned, like say one of my staff, and I think it's an important issue to address, that I do care about, that people are feel welcome and accepted, right? And it's a weird situation that we're in, because then you have to decide, okay, do I want to create an environment where certain people are accepted or not? Meaning that, for example, if you have a quote conservative voice and you feel like that your voice doesn't belong, but so I laugh because it's a really awkward situation, because we essentially have one group attacking another group, right? Because person who say is a female and identifies as a male, dresses like a man, everyone thinks it's a man, this sort of thing, isn't like telling your kids that they have to be men. It's just not really like that. And so one news you have, basically when Elon Musk makes these kind of jokes, you're essentially attacking the lesbian, gay, and trans community, essentially. Also, too, you have him overtly attacking Fauci, which is a really problematic. So one is that this is very real, guys. Elon Musk has factories in Shanghai, right? He never tweets out making fun of the Chinese government, even though they've had lockdown after lockdown after lockdown, and has severely affected his business. He never tweets about that kind of stuff. He never makes fun of Chinese government. He never makes fun of Chinese government or freedom of speech in China, right? He doesn't. And so, obviously these kind of things are important issues in USA. And obviously he cares about what the Chinese party thinks about him in his business, right? So that's always extremely hypocritical. If he was really a free speech person, he would be tweeting out about China. He would be tweeting out, things we say regarding the Foxconn factory, which is a very real thing, right? Like, say, for example, if you're Apple and the workers in the Foxconn factory that build your iPhones are running away, and they're basically under really horrible conditions, it's a horrible PR thing for Apple, right? Or, for example, we talked about before on this channel where, say, the Tesla factory workers are working 6 days a week, 12-hour days, these kind of things, and Elon basically tweets out and says, or says into meetings that he thinks the Chinese work ethic is fantastic and Americans could learn from that. We're seeing more of an inside look of the erratic behavior of Elon. And also, too, when people say, oh, it's just a harmless tweet, blah, 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 what does it matter? It was the same as, we went to this whole stuff with Trump as well, is when you have a lot of followers and people listen to what you say, you need to be, more cautious on the things that you say, or more controlled, right? You don't want to just be spouting every single thing all day, every day, about any sort of nonsense or making those kind of jokes. And this is sort of why I asked you guys in the beginning is what kind of boss, what kind of manager of people do you want to be? And this is also, too, something very clear where I make it a purpose conscious effort to put out content and chat with you guys every single day to just demonstrate this is who I am, this is how I talk, this is the kind of things that we talk about, and this is sort of the reliable thing and person that I want to be for you guys, and sort of why I do this every single day. And when I see sort of what's the right word to put it, the behavior of someone like Elon every single day as well, and I'm just what is this bizarre behavior? It just really shows how, unfortunately, we still have a lot of bad bosses out there in the world. And it was interesting because if people say, oh, no, Elon's a great boss, he's a great manager, and stuff like that, that there's been several lawsuits against his companies. There's been harassment cases brought up against them, and they always usually settle out of court, and they'll just pay someone a bunch of money to be quiet, this kind of stuff. And it's interesting because, just think about this as well. If you're a CEO of a company, do you want to be tweeting out every 5 minutes of anything? It's the same thing we had with Trump being president of the United States. It's no. Generally speaking, as a company, and I just want you guys to think about this for yourself, you want to be a person that is attractive for other people to want to do business with, and you don't want to necessarily be a person to where people are man, this person is unstable, I don't know what they're going to tweet out next, I don't know what they're going to say next. Because, for example, and I ask you guys this question as well, how do you want to be a boss or manager? Let's say you make a partnership with a star. We'll use the example of Kanye West, right? And as Adidas, you say, okay, we're going to make a shoe and clothing line with Kanye, and we're going to call it, I think they called it Yeezy, something like that. And we're going to sell lots of products and everything. So what do you do if your star starts, saying like, I love Hitler and stuff like this in public statements and interviews, and starts tweeting out swastikas, this kind of stuff? Do you want your brand, being Adidas, to be connected with said person, right? And me personally, I think it's an obvious decision. No, but right, maybe people are okay with that. Maybe say, oh, I'm all about free speech, and Ye can say whatever that person wants. But as a business, this is a real thing that you have to decide. If you're Adidas, do you want to have ties with that person or not? Another example, which we talked about yesterday in the channel, is let's say I run a sports organization, right? You're the president, the player manager, whatever you want to call it, of the Los Angeles Lakers, and you have a player that goes out and hits people at the bar, right? And has abusive getting in fights, these kind of things, right? And do you want to have that person? And you could say, oh well, as long as that person scores 50 points a night and is really good, hits all the 3-pointers, I don't care how many fights they get in. You have to decide this. This is actually a real thing. This is about managing people. So, I know I'm talking about multiple things at the same time, but managing people can be complicated. And ultimately, though, you want to protect your brand, right? You don't necessarily want your employees out doing bad things. I'll give you an example. There was a recent one. It was really funny. And it is funny because if you read about it, it's so ridiculous. I want to say it was Tyson. I'm pretty sure it's Tyson Chicken. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But essentially what it was like the grandson of the founder of the company what was found in a like neighbor's apartment, basically a stranger's apartment, and it was a woman's apartment, and he was like passed out and drunk. She did not invite this person to go there, and she had to call the police on him, like, what is this guy doing in my apartment? And ultimately the guy had to apologize and stuff like that. But the thing is like, if your employees breaking into other people's apartments and like falling asleep, passing out due to alcohol in their bed, is that the kind of employee that you want on your staff? Now, this guy was the grandson of the founder of the company, so he's probably not going anywhere. However, is that appropriate behavior? And this is sort of why, if you wonder, like, why would brands be leaving Twitter, is this kind of stuff. You don't know what the heck Elon's going to say next, and do you want to be connected with this kind of stuff? Now, for some people, maybe he's a champion of the right. He's all about free speech, these kind of things, but if that were the case, he would be tweeting out things against the situation in China and against what the Chinese government is doing, but he doesn't. And so this is sort of where it becomes very, very hypocritical. So I know this is a very, very long conversation, and for me, it's crystal clear that you don't want to be associated with Twitter or Elon at this point. And it's unfortunate to see and sad to see. I used to admire him for SpaceX and say, want to send humans to Mars, these kind of things. I think that stuff's cool. I really do. I don't say, I'm all about space travel and technology and stuff, kind of stuff. And it's so weird that he would want to get involved with Twitter. But remember, he really didn't, and he tried to get out of the deal. So, I'm sure there'll be, people out there who are going to defend Elon till the day they die. I'm sure. And I'm sure there's people out there that don't see any problem with making fun of the whole pronoun situation. I get that. I really get that. I'm not stupid. But I just want you guys to put these sort of thoughts in your head. Just think about, if you're a manager of a company or organization and employees that are different than you, right, any number of ways, bring concerns to you about their feelings, about any number of things, how do you respond, right? And, in an older management style, people would say, well, I just pay you to do X, and then shut up. That's an old management style, right? So I don't adhere to that, and I don't teach that. And I don't think that's necessarily a good way to manage people. So everyone's going to be different in their point of view on that, and I shared with you mine. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you understand my whole feelings on this kind of thing, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.